So we're a software company, so it's not our drone, it's our system. Um, and yeah, the idea is like my best dog that I used to tell her what I want to do, and she knew what's going on. She knew the animals, she knew the pastures. I just had to tell her what I want to do, and she would go out and do it. So that's the basis of our system. So using a simple application on a smartphone or a tablet, you just tell our system, you tell Joe, go check on the location of my livestock, or go check on the infrastructure, or go take my herd from pasture A to pasture B, or bring the herd in for medical checkups or vaccinations or whatever it is. So the same way I would tell my workers what I need to get done.
Mhm.
It's the same thing. You just tell our system what you want to get done, and it goes out and does it.
Welcome to our series entitled the IAM Podcast, a podcast about innovation, business, and most importantly, people. In this series, we'll be talking to founders, executives, and various experts about their vision, challenges, best practices, and lessons learned throughout their journey. Let's get started. Hello, everyone. I'm so happy to be joined by the Chief Executive Officer at BeeFree Agro. Please welcome Noam Azran. Hello, Noam. How are you?
I'm good, May. Thank you very much. It's really good to be here.
Yes, we are happy to have you. Would love to learn more about you, your product, the market, the team, and of course, your journey. Okay, so let's get started. If there are investors watching us right now, so can you tell us your elevator pitch?
Sure. So the livestock industry hasn't really changed in the last few hundred years, except for having cell phones and pickup trucks integrated into operations. And we are developing a tool, an autonomous tool to help manage and control livestock. So we're using drones and a lot of brain power and technology behind that to give farmers the possibility to control their livestock over very large expanses of land, infrastructure that's spread out through many hectares, and giving them the tool that enables them to run and manage their operations very efficiently, cutting down operating costs, cutting down the need for many workers to do the routine operations, and anything from repetitive and dangerous jobs that we're trying to avoid that, all the way to getting detection of many parameters that are very hard to get people trained to see and spot these parameters. So early detection of disease, see changes in herding patterns, all that kind of thing that we use our technology to detect and monitor and report in a very easy way to the livestock growers.
Hmm. You mentioned about repetitive tasks. So, what are the other pains in the industry that you're solving right now?
Sure. So again, this industry is basically managing many animals over large expanses of land. So you have to check every day on your herd if there's anybody sick, if there's any calving going on, the condition of the herd. And then on top of that, you have to check on your infrastructure constantly. So checking up on troughs to see if there's water in the troughs, right? If you have 40-degree heat in the day and your trough is out of water, within a day and a half, your herd is in serious trouble. You have to check on your fences to see that your cows are where you left them. You have to monitor as far as security, right? You have to see at night whether there are people trying to move your herds to where they're not supposed to be, take them somewhere else. And also, that also goes to predators. If you have many predators in your area, to monitor what's going on with that, to see if there's predators trying to attack your herd. So those are the major challenges on top um, of basically a global shortage in skilled manpowers. Cowboy is kind of a job and skill that's disappearing from this world. It also goes from the workers, and also goes to the next generation of growers that generally it's such hard work, and the pay and the revenue that comes out of it today is minimal. So the next generation is just not looking to get into this industry. So we're trying to change that balance, and make this a much more profitable industry. Have the people that are still in it be more professional, and being able to pay them for what they do. And the last part of what we're trying to do is basically going into sustainability. About a third of of agricultural lands in the world are used for growing livestock or growing feed for livestock, which is a huge amount of territory. And being able to take this industry from a carbon positive industry, where it's actually not doing things that are harmful to the environment, to being able to capture enough greenhouse gases so that the industry can become carbon neutral or even carbon negative, and offset that whole thing.
Take us to the table where you talked with your co-founder. Like, how did this idea came about?
My co-founder is a second generation livestock grower, and I've been in this industry for over 15 years. And for 10 years, we've been working together running a livestock operation. So it wasn't this, meeting somewhere and coming up with an idea. We actually started using drones for ourselves in our own operation. And we started using drones in 2014, and very quickly it blew our mind what we could actually do and achieve using this tool. And within 2 years, we changed our whole operation to revolve around the work of the drones. And it had a huge impact on what we were doing. So it's cut down our costs of, our operating costs, from vehicle wear and tear to everything that has to come along with that, all the way to cutting our employees by 50%. Before that, we were constantly struggling to find new people to teach the skills and get them to work. And usually that cycle is very short. So by the time you teach somebody, which is 6 months to a year, you teach them the basic skills, they say, okay, I'm off doing the next thing, doing something that's not as hard, not as taxing. And so it allowed us to, be dependent on ourselves, not having to be dependent on finding external workforce to run the operation. And on top of that, we were able to really improve our pastures, creating more calories per acre that we were growing, and improve the results of the herd, to the point that we opened another branch in our farm for sheep. We started importing and creating our own genetic line here in Israel. So yeah, it got us to the point that we had enough free time that we opened another branch in our operation for sheep. And we started importing and implementing new genetics in our herd that was very successful here. But these are all side effects. I think the biggest issue was that before having this tool and using the system, we were constantly trying to put out fires. You're constantly trying to figure out what went wrong where. And only about 5 to 10% of the time, you're actually dealing with problems. And having this tool change this around, 90% of our time got freed up. We knew what's going on all the time, everywhere. And then you have the 10% of the time that you use for dealing with these issues or actually doing what needs to be done in the operation. And you have this a huge amount of free time to start out why you're doing things, how you're doing the things that you're doing. Is there a better way to do them? What can we change? Before that, you're just constantly trying to catch up. So it was a huge shift on how we saw how we looked at running an operation. And so to bring it back to the question of how it came up, we saw how this tool will change our lives, and we understood that we've created a brand new tool for this industry. And then we also understood that in order to make this a tool that's available to many ranchers, we had to make it an autonomous tool. So the level of flight needed in order to do the things that we were doing in our herd, it takes a few years to get there. And like I said, livestock growers, they don't have this time to start playing around for 2 years until they can start seeing results. And the average age of a livestock grower is around 60 years old. So not the most techie people. So
Hold on.
we realized that we have to create this tool that is autonomous and easy to operate.
Okay. So this tool changed your life, and now you're bringing that change to the farmers and ranchers. So please talk about this tool. You have a drone named Joe, this personal herding assistant. Would love to hear more about him. More about it.
So first of all, it's a her. Joe is named after our best herding dog, which is my dog until this day, except that now she is retired. But it's named after her. And so we're a software company, so it's not our drone, it's our system. Um, and yeah, the idea is like my best dog that I used to tell her what I want to do, and she knew what's going on. She knew the animals, she knew the pastures. I just had to tell her what I want to do, and she would go out and do it. So that's the basis of our system. So using a simple application on a smartphone or a tablet, you just tell our system, you tell Joe, go check on the location of my livestock, or go check on the infrastructure, or go take my herd from pasture A to pasture B, or bring the herd in for medical checkups or vaccinations or whatever it is. So the same way I would tell my workers what I need to get done.
Mm-hmm.
It's the same thing. You just tell our system what you want to get done, and it goes out and does it. And again, using a drone gives you an aerial perspective, so you can scan very large areas very quickly. And with our technology, we're able to not only scan and see that there are animals or objects in that area, we can identify what these objects are, and also get you an exact GPS location of every single animal there. So that's very, very important, especially it's important for ranchers in general to know where their animals are and how many animals are in each place. You need to know how they're reacting to the drone, if they're moving along or they're not, if they're trying to do something else or go in a different direction. So our system is constantly gathering information of where the animals are, how they're reacting, and adjusting the movements that it needs to do in order to get them to the destination.
Mm. So, how are they literally reacting to the drones?
Sure. So cows are prey animals, and they pretty much have an algorithm of how they react to predators. And for them, a predator it can be a person on a horse or a herd dog, or a wolf. We're all predators to them, and the way they detect and interact with predators is through the movement. Predators move in a certain way, and those movements generate the reaction from the animals. So, being experts in animal behavior and individual animal psychology, we know how to implement the right movements at any given situation to create the reaction we want from the cows. So the drone herds the cows through its movement and location relative to the animals. So again, the same way a cowboy would position himself in a certain place, or the herd dog would position himself in a certain place, the drone does exactly that.
Mm. Okay. So, to those who don't have any idea about ranches, farmers, herding dogs, like how taxing it is to go to the ranch and herd animals, and how
Um,
impact the impact of your product.
sure. So it's one of the most time-consuming and labor-consuming operations. So if you talk about small herds of 500 heads or 700 mothers, something like that, it's a relatively small herd. You need anywhere from 3 to 5 to 7 cowboys to move that herd. It's very, very hard to do. It's, you're doing it either it's super hot, or in the middle of the day, or it's very, very cold in some places, and it's dangerous work. It doesn't matter if you're riding a horse chasing animals, which is a dangerous thing on its own, or you're doing it on an ATV or a motorcycle or even a helicopter on large operations. It's very dangerous work. And
Mm.
usually when you move a herd, if you're bringing it in for checkups or whatever work you need to get done, you get the herd into where you want it. Everybody's angry and tired and annoyed by that time, which is basically when you start working. So you have tired and angry animals and tired and angry cowboys, and now they have to interact with each other, which is the worst possible case that you want. You want to work with calm animals. You want your cowboys to be fresh and not hungry, not tired, and you want them to be focused on doing things in a calm way. The um, the key element in any livestock operation is basically the welfare of the livestock. If they're stressed out like humans, if you're stressed out, you're less healthy, you're less productive, you're less fertile. And as a livestock grower, the most important thing to you should be, and in most places it is how happy are your cows. And so having our system do all this work, integrating low stress management, basically says that the any interaction with the herd is a very calm event for the herd. And again, when you get to the actual part that you need to work with the livestock, so you're bringing them in for checkups, the herd is there. When the herd reaches that place, the herd is calm. They haven't been, yelled at, chased after, barked at. It's a very calm process for the herd, so that's very, very important to us.
Okay. So you mentioned about, okay, they have to do this during the day. I mean, it's very hot. But what if it rains? And then does the drone get affected with the weather or something? Is it a challenge or what?
So generally, you don't move animals when it rains. They don't like moving when it rains. So that's not the time that you go out and herd them. You do monitor, of course. Sometimes you do go out and see what's going on, even when it rains. Though it's usually much harder. If it's rained, it's muddy. Your off-road vehicles, it's much harder for them to get around. It's harder for horses. So during rough weather, usually there's very little to be done outdoors. Having said that, there are drones that can go out and fly in the rain, but nobody is moving livestock during rainstorms and harsh conditions.
That's very enlightening. Okay. So please share with us the challenges. Okay.
The challenges for us as a company,
Yep. As a startup company.
as a startup, wow. So it's all a challenge. Like I said, my partner and I, we both come from we're farmers, we're livestock growers. So we came into this whole ecosystem knowing basically nothing. So anywhere from starting a business and registering it to going into, starting our first steps into the startup ecosystem in Israel, and understanding the vast gap between having a good idea and to actually implementing it all the way from the technological side to regulation to operations to customers to venture capital to grants. It's this huge sphere. It's this huge ecosystem that you have to go into and learn on the fly. And I can say from our experience here in Israel, it's a very supportive ecosystem. I mean, people here have been, helping us through mentoring, through giving advice, through introductions. And it's also something that we are very happy to be able to do to newer startups that we're now advising and helping. So it's really nice to have that to have that way of thinking and that way of operating inside this ecosystem. I think for any young startup, the biggest challenge, going into the pre-seed and seed rounds is actually getting funded in this early stages, especially when you're talking about an industry that nobody knows. I mean,
Mm.
it's a massive industry, but in the venture capital world, in the investment world, nobody's thinking about cows because there really has been very little technology that's into this area. So it's just an unknown. So on top of having to explain all the regular things that any startup or company has to explain, we have to explain what in the world is this industry? Why do they need technology? What is a cowboy? Why is it hard to get cowboys? What do they do? What is the value that we're bringing? They don't know. Nobody knows anything about that. So having to educate people on why we're here, why it's important, why it has value. That's one thing. And the second thing that I think right now we're encountering as a big challenge is getting access to talent. Finding high qualified people in the ecosystem in Israel today. It's very, very hard. We are growing at the moment, and we're looking to hire on developers. And yeah, everybody's looking for developers these days, and they're a much needed commodity. So just being able to get to the right people has been hard. Yeah, it's been challenging for sure. As far as what we are doing and what we're looking to do. So like I said, our system basically interacts with drones and controls drones. So everything that has to go with fully autonomous flight of drones and controlling different operating systems. We're using a lot of artificial intelligence and computer vision and machine learning, basically using the basic sensors on the drone, like cameras, to let the drone understand the world around it. So anywhere from varying heights and topography to the animals and objects that are around it, to animals, to identify them as animals, and to work with that information to create new flight paths and patterns. Um, so that's the core of our technology. That integrates, of course, with all our professional expertise in the field of basically what the system do. So translating our professional expertise in the field into a smart system that can do these decisions instead of us. So that's the whole automation part of this. There's a lot of algorithm work in what we're doing, all the way, developing SDKs and website development, using different platforms and languages like Python and Java. And I think what is interesting for developers and the people that work with us now is basically that we're building this thing from the bottom up, and we're creating all these algorithms internally for ourselves. Many of these things are brand new. Like there is no, I'm guessing that military has developed similar things, but that's the military side of things. As far as most drone companies or most autonomous drone companies operating today, is that we're working in very complex environments. We're not flying, 50 or 100 meters above ground taking pictures. We're flying all the way down to a meter and a meter and a half above ground level, between and among animals that are constantly moving. And our drone has to react and interact with all these variables. So it's quite challenging. We have come a long, long way, I think, in the last 2 years. We have a prototype. We're starting now pilots here in Israel and abroad very, very soon. So we're now really scaling and growing and getting into even more complex areas and operations of the system.
Mm,
Yeah, so it's, I think, interesting times for us, and we're really looking forward to finding the right people to come and join us.
right. So where can they reach you? What's the fastest way to reach you?
So I guess if you go to our website, there are all our emails there. LinkedIn is excellent. You either go into BeeFree Agro or to my personal LinkedIn, which is Noam Azran. And we get back to you usually very fast.
All right. Okay. So right now, where are you in your journey, and where do you plan to take your product, and what's the road ahead for BeeFree Agro?
Yeah. Okay. So like I said, where we are now, we're now really wrapping up the first set of services, or the first product that we're coming out with. We're starting out with pilots here in Israel very, very soon, as well as internationally. Um, Basically, coming online and getting to customers. That's exactly the point that we're at, and scaling up this operation, and starting and ramping up the next set of services. So every set of services gets more and more complex, getting into more and more complex operations. So it just gets more and more interesting as time goes by. And yeah, getting to market. That's where we are at the moment.
Okay. Thank you. We're looking forward to, I mean, we are watching your product. And okay, before we end this interview or this discussion, you earned the title the Tech Cowboys, right? Could you share with us that?
Sure. So I think it was, so we started the company during COVID. So basically the first year we were just in an office brainstorming, learning, getting our research done properly, setting up the business plans. And then at the end of 2020, we got invited to participate in GITEX, which is a very, very large exhibition in Dubai.
Mm.
And we jumped on the opportunity. We said it's a great place to get exposure, to come out and tell people what we're doing. And we flew out there. And like I said, we're ranchers. We haven't been outside in this industry before. And we came up, dressed as cowboys. And it basically caught on very fast. So that was one point that it came up. And then also here in Israel, we were the first two lunatics in the whole industry here that started flying drones and playing with technology.
What do you miss about the ranch? I mean, from being a cowboy to a tech, in an office. So, what do you miss the most?
Um, to be honest, what I miss the most is, time in the saddle. You're all alone, along with your horse, and you're just among animals. it's been a major shift in my life, being, most of the time being, with myself and the animals around me. And now I'm surrounded by people and constantly interacting with people. And, from being in a very open space, being out in pastures all day long, to being in offices and in meetings and things like that. However, we are still very much in touch with the ground. We have two R&D ranches here in Israel that we're there quite a lot. Try to be there as much as we can. Um, yeah, it's a very different lifestyle. I think both have their pluses and minuses. And for me, the ideal is down the road to be able to get the best out of both. So being able to run this whole project that we're on now, and I see a lot of value in us being able to have our feet on the ground, getting to go to our customers, boots on the ground, and get their insights and their perspective on how things are going. So hopefully we can get to integrate both worlds.
Hmm. Well, from being a cowboy to being a founder. Okay, that's a big shift. Okay. Did it help you? I mean, what part of being a cowboy helped you running a company?
I think being used to not sleeping is very good, very helpful when you're starting up a company. And I think being a cowboy, you spend a lot of time with animals and with herds, and I see a lot of correlation between psychology and watching how animals interact and how they live and how they are. I think we're very similar from what I've seen. So I think it goes into understanding and being able to watch people and understand where they're coming from, what makes them operate, what makes them run, what are they trying to gain. I've had my learning years into that, or my a lot of time to go into in depth about psychology from animals and being able to transfer that into people. I think that's crucial because again, we're now in the world of humans, and you have to understand the people that you're working with. Even though, again, for us as farmers, most people we work with are very different from what we are used to. But we've learned to interact with them and understand each other very well. So again, understanding people and what they want and where they want to be is, I think, is important no matter where you are and what you're doing.
Is that a great piece of advice you wanna give our listeners or viewers today?
Um, I don't know if there's one
Anymore?
piece of, I don't know. I think, it's hard to narrow it down, but yeah, sure. Being able to understand people and read people is super important. And being able, I think, as a person, if you set yourself up for a goal and you understand the sacrifices that you're willing to make in order to get there, and then it's following through. It's
Mhm.
there is no straight path to anything, but there are as many downs. And I think it's in those really tough moments that we're measured, and of how much do you really want something, how much are you willing to go through and sacrifice in order to get it. So
All right.
if you want to do something and you want to go and get it, be willing to do whatever it takes.
Amazing. So, okay, this is the last part you have to fill. I am Noam, your blank founder. So, what do you want to be known for as a founder?
um I think if I had to put it in one word,
Hmm.
I'm a learning founder. I've had to learn everything from the scratch, from scratch. I came into this world with no previous knowledge of the business side of any of it. So learning has been, I think, learning and evolving have been the key elements in bringing me to where I am.
Hmm. Okay, I thought you were gonna say I'm Noam, your cowboy founder, since you're the very first one you said. Okay,
Well, yeah, I think, eh, yeah. No, I'll stick with learning for sure.
learning. Sure. Okay, thank you very much, Noam, for your time. Really appreciate it. All the best to BeeFree Agro.
Thank you very much.
This podcast is powered by IAMOps.io. Optimize your cloud infrastructure and CI/CD process with IAMOps.io dedicated DevOps team. Check out www.iamops.io and get a DevOps team now. Make sure to check out www.iamops.io if you want to know more about us. Subscribe to our podcast so you can get notified every time we post a new video. Thank you, and you have a great day.